All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakadash. Lord willing, this lesson will be edifying. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth to rule well. All right, first and foremost, in Daniel chapter 2 and in verse 40, which actually, let me go to that real quick, and I'll come back to this. Okay, just briefly explaining this image, which Daniel had seen, or with Nebuchadnezzar had seen, and Daniel had broken down in Daniel's the second chapter. Okay, so it says Daniel's chapter 2, or Daniel chapter 2, and verse 40, it says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise." And that is talking about the Roman Empire. Okay, so you have the head of gold, the breast of silver, the thighs of brass, the legs of iron, and then the feet of iron and clay. So the head represented Babylon the Great, which was the interpretation was given to Nebuchadnezzar, and then the breast of silver is the Medo-Persian Empire, okay, and then the Medo-Persians were taken over by Alexander the Greek, which was to rule over the Greeks, the first one to rule over the Greeks. He became that king in Greece. So then the legs of iron are the Romans, which actually used iron more than any other nation to make weapons, because iron is the stronger metal when it comes to, to arts and war and things of that nature. So briefly just touching on that. But the last one is the feet of a divided nation, the feet of iron and clay. So it says, verse 41, Daniel's chapter 2, verse 41, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the merry clay. And as the toes and the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken." Okay, you have what is called Brexit, okay, which is when the British exited the EU, a few years back. You also have Babylon the Great, America, which is a divided kingdom. Okay, so this is Psalms. Salak. Psalms chapter 10. Let me jump down. Psalms chapter 10 and verse 1. "Why standest thou afar off, O Yahweh? Why hidest thou thyself in the times of trouble?" Okay, because these times of trouble are coming up pretty quickly, man. Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai has declared this a kingdom to be appointed for a certain period of time, and then he's going to set up Yahweh Shai to rule over the earth, the whole earth, in righteousness and under the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. So it says, verse 2, "The wicked in his pride doeth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined." Okay, and what are the devices they imagined? Nuclear fire. That's why the nations are divided. Okay, this is Revelations 13. Revelations 13, and I believe it was verse, let me see. Should have been one of the first verses. Revelations 13 and verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Okay, which from 1620 to 1970 was the beginning of the downfall of Babylon the Great. You know, once they reach the star, it says, I believe it's the book of Obadiah that says, you know, when they begin to reach the stars, thence will I begin to bring them down. You know, it says, verse 6, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given over him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. You see, so that's that feet of iron and clay. And we know that the feet of iron and clay, they don't mix. Okay? That's why you have people fighting against NATO. Okay? Which by people, I mean the EU fights against NATO. And they try to take NATO out of the equation. And then NATO comes back and says, you're going to regret it. And then they come back together. And then Great Britain's like, you know, the British with the Brexit. They say, well, you know what? It's better for me to establish my own self and to exit out of this, you know. So the kingdom is divided, basically, man. You know, and especially here in Babylon the Great, you have these riots and these things that, you know, these Edomites are pushing forward, you know. So it's clearly divided, okay? Clearly it's divided. So Revelations 13 and verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Now, if you look up the word worship, it means to reverence or to have in high authority, right? This is the word pride. And when you go into the definition, it says a high or inordinate opinion of one's own dignity. You see, so you're reverencing America, Babylon the Great, which is the same thing as reverencing their democracy, reverencing the EU, NATO, and what they push, which is the same thing that the Roman Empire was pushing. You see? So that flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth in Revelations chapter 12, that flood is these philosophies, democracy. You know, it could also be the troops that they push out, but mostly the democracy that they push, you know, the philosophies of the world, man. That's why the elect in Revelations 14 were found to be clean, you know. They weren't found to be defiled with women, for they were virgins, right? Revelations 14 and 4, you know. And it's because they didn't mix themselves with the ways of Babylon the Great. You know, a high ordinance or opinion of one's own dignity, importance, merit, or superiority. You see? So back in Psalms, let me get that again. It's a lock. Back in Psalms chapter 10, it reads, Psalms 10 and verse 3, for the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom Yahweh abhorreth. Right? And like the book of Romans says, cleave unto that which is good and abhor evil. You know? So if this man is the man of sin, are we not to abhor evil and wickedness? Okay? It says, the wicked through the pride of his countenance will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts. You see? So his thoughts, Esau's thoughts, are of himself. Okay? How can he make himself be greater? You know? This is an article. It says, American exceptionalism is a belief that almost any American, Republican or Democrat, pro or anti-Trump, considers part of his own political genetic code. Why? Because it was instilled within you. Okay? Being here in Babylon the Great, that's what they push. It says, Henry Kissinger provides a clear definition, writing that it is a belief that American principles are universal and that the governments that do not practice them are not fully legitimized. A notion so much rooted in the American thinking that induces to think that part of the world lives in an unsatisfactory, provisional situation and that one day will be redeemed by America. Now, if that doesn't scream out pride, I don't know what does. Okay, so back to the word pride. The definition is a high or inordinate opinion of one's own dignity, importance, merit, or superiority, whether as cherished in the mind or as displayed in bearing, conduct, etc. The state of feeling or of being proud. A becoming or dignified sense of what is due to oneself in one's position or character, self-respect, self-esteem. When you go into history, okay, the Edomites, what they were pushing was called manifest destiny. You know, you learn about that in 4th grade, you know, manifest destiny. That means destiny that was manifested within them taking land that didn't belong to them. You know, why? Because they're sinister. And that word sinister, like Apostle Gabar goes into, means left hand. You know, sinistros, which means left hand. The left hand of the Most High are these demons and these Edomites, which are the axe that is being hewed. You know, it says definition number 4, pleasure or satisfaction taken in something done by or belonging to oneself, or believed to reflect credit upon oneself. You see? So you have these kingdoms, okay, that see America as an enemy, you know? And America sees them as enemies. You see, especially in the Middle East, especially against Russia. And in Revelation 13, it goes into how the bear is the end of that great whore that sitteth upon many waters. You know? So it says, Revelations, going to Revelations 13, and let me see. Verse 13, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. You know? Because going back to Psalms chapter 10, it says, verse 5, his ways are always grievous, thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. You know? And why does he puff at them? Well, in the Middle East, he had the power for a long time because he had nuclear power. You know? So back in Revelations 13:13, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Okay? Which if you see the movie Outside the Wire, okay? When you see the movie Outside the Wire, you'll see that they created this type of cyborg, okay, which he doesn't call himself AI. You know, he says AI is below his thinking range, you know, so he calls himself to be above AI, you know, and he's sent on a special mission from America to Russia in order to get intel on the Russians, or in Ukraine, or I believe it was Ukraine. But he was sent to get information on Russians and, you know, their plans and things of that nature. And it ends up being that artificial intelligent man or cyborg ends up being the bad guy that tries to send a nuke to America, because he realizes, okay, that the problem is the American people. You know? When you stand on the point of the outside instead of looking from inside, instead of being biased and looking at historical facts and looking at current history, you realize that the enemy, okay, are not these other nations, man, but they're the American people, going out to these foreign lands, taking what they want, destroying what they please to destroy, making themselves to be like the Most High, and that's why the nation is divided, because he boasts himself and puffs at his enemies and says, well, if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. And, I'm going to get you. And that's basically the mindset that Donald Trump was pushing as well, which we know that he was part of the plan of the elites anyways, because he's wicked. It says Psalms chapter 10 and verse 6, he hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity, and that's the same mindset that the king of Babylon had. That's why he made that golden statue of all gold, saying, nah, it's not just going to be the head. It's going to be the arms, the legs, the thighs, the legs, and the feet. Everything is going to be me. It's going to continue to be me, and that's why King Nebuchadnezzar got that disease, which, they call it a specific type of disease, but it was really the Most High that changed him into being like an animal, eating outside with animals. You see? So that's the same mindset that Esau Edom has. The pride of thine heart has deceived thee. It says, Psalms chapter 10 and verse 7, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. Now, when you go to Psalms chapter 58, okay, it says something very similar. Let me see here. Psalms 58 and verse 1. Do ye indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? Yea, in heart ye work wickedness. Ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. You see? And that's what they do. They go to the Middle East and they go wherever they please and take whatever they please. Why? Because this is their kingdom. Okay? And they're allowed to do so for a long period of time until the Most High says enough is enough. Okay? And he puts a spirit on these other nations to come up against Babylon the Great. That's why it says, I believe it was in one of the book of Psalms, basically roughly paraphrasing, he's going to lay a wound under thee, which means those that you work so hard with are going to turn against you, That's why it says divided nations of West Europe, which is not necessarily just West Europe, okay, because you have Babylon the Great, which is America, and it is America, So it says Psalms chapter 58 and verse 4. It's like in verse 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder which stoppeth her ear, which will not hearken to the voice of the charmers, charming never so wisely. And in Luke 16, you have the rich man, and then you have the poor man, Lazarus. The rich man lived deliciously, okay, and the poor man, Lazarus, lived by off of the crumbs of the rich man. And when Lazarus died, okay, whenever Lazarus died, he went up to the heavens, and he was met by Abraham, and looking down, he saw the rich man. The rich man wanted Lazarus to dip his tongue in some cold water, okay, and put it on his tongue so he can cool down a little bit, and that was a symbolic representation. It didn't actually happen, but that symbolic representation is Lazarus being the Israelites, the elect, and the rich man and the 5 brothers being the Edomites, So it says And he mentioned, if one of us goes back from the dead and preaches unto them and tells them of the things that are coming, they're going to change their mind. And Abraham in that verse had said, even if they come back from the dead, they're not going to listen. Have them listen to the prophets, have them listen to Moses, but they won't. And that's why Psalms 58:5 says, which will not hearken to the voice of the charmers, charming never so wisely, which is happening right now, okay, being the prophets. It says, break their teeth, O Yahweh, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Yahweh. And that also goes into that divided nations, breaking their teeth, breaking their ranks, within their ranks. And it says, break out the great teeth of the young lions, So actually, let me go to Psalms 58:7. So like in verse 6, Psalms 58:6 in the blue letter. And we'll get that word young lions. So that word young lion or lion is kapiar, which means a young lion or a village. You see, villages. It says also a young lion, perhaps as covered with a mane, young lion or a village. So it said, break their teeth, O Yahweh, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions. Those young villages, those young nations. Which the young nations are that last kingdom. Okay? So it says, let's see, Salakia. Psalms 58 and continuing in verse 7, let them melt away as waters which run continually when he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows. Let them be as cut in pieces. And that's the same thing we see in Isaiah chapter 50 and also in 51. So let me go to that real quick. Salak. This is Isaiah chapter 50. Or was it Jeremiah? Let me see. Salakia. Let's see here. Isaiah, I believe it was Jeremiah 50. Might have been Jeremiah 50. Salakia, bear with me, Hakim. Jeremiah 50:9, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be shaken or taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man, none shall turn in vain. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith Yahweh. Because ye were glad, because you rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, because you were grown fat as the heifer at grass, and bellow as bulls, your mother shall be sore confounded. All right, which is who? It's England. Your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Okay, and if you go into that, the English are very ashamed of the American. They don't even consider them, descendants. It says, behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land and a desert. because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished, and hiss at her plagues. But yourselves in array against Babylon, put yourselves in array against Babylon, Salakia. Jeremiah 50:14. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against Yahweh. Shout against her round about. She hath given her hand, her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of Yahweh. Take vengeance upon her, as she hath done, do unto her. You see? So in Psalms 58:7, let them melt away as the waters which run continually. Why? By nuclear fire. And that's what's coming to Babylon the Great America. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. So going to Salakia. Let me go get this real quick. Going back to Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 and verse 42. And as the toes and the feet were part iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Okay, it's partly strong, it's still in rulership, right? And that's through the prudence, okay, of those that are in authority. This is Sirach chapter 10 and verse 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. And this place is not well ordered, man. And that's why Yahweh Shai said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. If Satan be divided against Satan, his house cannot stand. You see? So if you have Edomites against Edomites, Egyptians against Egyptians, then the house will not stand. And that's what the book of Isaiah 19 goes into. Chapter 19 goes into Egyptians against Egyptians, being the Babylonians, being Edom, Esau, And as Psalms 137 goes into, Babylon the Great, the daughter of Babylon, is Esau, Edom. So Sirach chapter 10 and verse 2. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers, and what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. Okay, so you see how there was, revolutions going on and uprisings of the people in France, okay, Italy, England. Here in Babylon, America, you have uprisings of the people in under the NATO and EU. Okay? But yet still, because of the prudence of those that are in authority, the cities are still inhabited. Verse 4, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable, which is who? Yahweh Shai. In the hand of Yahweh is the prosperity of man, and upon the person of the scribe shall he lay his honor. Bear not hatred to thy neighbor for every wrong, and do nothing at all by injurious practices. Pride is hateful before the Most High and man, and by both doth one commit iniquity. You see? So again, that word pride, man, it keeps coming up. A high or inordinate opinion of one's own dignity. That's why you have American pride, and pride itself is a terrible thing, man. You gotta constantly rebuke yourself, because as scriptures say, knowledge puffeth up. You gotta keep yourself humble and keep humbling yourself. Sirach 10 and 8, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. You see? So Yahweh Shem Yahushai is going to translate the world from under the hand of Esau Edom and give it to the Israelites, starting with the elect Yahushai. You know? So it says, verse 9, why is earth and ashes proud? There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. For such a one setteth his own soul to sail, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels. You see? So going back to Psalms 58 in verse 7, let them melt away as the waters which run continually. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. As a snail melteth away, let every one of them pass away, like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Before your pots can feel the thorns, he shall take away as a whirlwind, both living and in his wrath. The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. You see? So to the Most High and to the elect, these things are beautiful. And that's why Revelations 13, 9, and 10 talks about the faith of the saints. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, and he that killeth with a sword must be killed with a sword. You know? So, let me see here. Psalms 58 and 11. So that a man shall say, verily there is a reward for the righteous. Verily he is a God that judges in the earth. You know? So Yahweh Shem Yahushai is going to judge this place, man. Okay? So let me go to this one. Salakia. I guess that was the only one. It says, Singer concludes that the American exceptionalism is a belief that causes a situation of general, latent conflict between much of the world and the world's superpower, the United States. This conviction has an important corollary, which is that there cannot be any difference between the interests of the United States and the interests of mankind. Okay, they're trying to bring back that one mind, you know, one government. You see? Why? Because they want to be those most highs. You know, they want to be that kingdom that's going to be set up forever. You know? Let me see this. This is Daniel chapter 2 and verse 44. And in the days of the kings shall the Most High of heaven set up a kingdom. You see? And that correlates with Hebrews 13 and 14. For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. And that's Daniel 2:44. And in the days of these kings shall the Most High of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. You see? So if the kingdom is not left to other people, who is this new kingdom going to be left to? The Israelites. You know? This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9, a classic. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. You see? So Esau is in rulership now. Then who is he? Okay, it says, but it shall break in pieces, back to Daniel 2 and 44, and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Okay, so you have to take note and see who are those kingdoms that are being set up. Who are those kingdoms that are in rulership? Okay? You don't see Babylon the Great America being called a third world country, right? The first world consisted of the US, Western Europe, and their allies. The second world was the so-called communist bloc, the Soviet Union, China, Cuba, and friends. The remaining nations, which aligned with their neither group, were assigned to the third world. Okay, what defines first world country? First world countries have stable democracies and are characterized by the rule of law, a capitalist economy, and a high standard of living. It was earlier used to refer to countries that were aligned with the United States and other Western nations in opposition to the former Soviet Union. You see? So who are the rulers of the world, man? Okay? It's NATO and the EU. You know? It's right there, clear as daylight, man. You know, but as scripture says, these things are clear to the righteous. Okay? And they're stumbling blocks unto the wicked. Okay? So this nation that's going to be set up is the nation of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay? Which, as it says in verse 44, it says it will not be left to other people. You know? So actually, let's go to that. Daniel 2:44. And it says, other ha-hara, which is Aramaic, another people, aim, which is people. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward, man. You know, there's no secret lines or anything of that nature. You know, simply will not be left to anyone else, but unto who? Deuteronomy 33. And let me just get to the point. Verse 28. Israel then shall dwell in safety alone. The fountain of Jacob shall be upon a land of corn and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. You see, so those enemies, NATO, EU, and these heathen, okay, these other people, they're going to be destroyed, man. You know? And when our kingdom is set up, it will never be destroyed. You see? And that's all set up by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, man. You know? So I hope that was edifying. With that, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to Yakim out there, pushing this word out in sincerity and in truth. A kingdom against itself. All right, Satan against himself cannot stand. About the ball. Shalom.